Throughout history, people have been both captivated and confused by the idea of evil. It is a fundamental concept in many of our worldviews and the tales we tell. Can you define evil? What makes certain people or things bad, and how can we spot it? The answers to these issues are fundamental to comprehending not only human morality, but also our own identities and the communities in which we participate. Picture yourself at the intersection of a lively metropolis. There are hundreds of choices being made all around you. Some are quite little, like picking out lunch, while others may have serious ethical consequences. Now picture someone making a bad decision among these everyday options. What compels an individual to make a decision of this kind? Is it a sign of my frail character, my moment of weakness, or the impact of society? From its philosophical roots to its contemporary expressions, this investigation delves deeply into the essence of evil, the age-old question. Are people fundamentally good or wicked? Is often the starting point for the path toward comprehending evil. For ages, thinkers in the fields of philosophy and religion have tried to answer this issue. Some people think that bad tendencies are hardwired into people from birth, a view that has its origins in religious teachings on original sin. Some think that we are corrupted by our culture and other outside forces. They argue that wickedness is not something we are born with, but rather something that we develop through our lives. The abuse of free will, according to prominent philosopher Immanuel Kant, is the root cause of evil. A person's moral character is defined by the decision they make between good and evil, according to Kant. On the other hand, contemporary psychology research often considers societal influences, mental health, and childhood experiences when attempting to deduce the motivations behind bad deeds. Particularly in dire situations, does society's effect on our moral decisions become apparent? Take into account how people act while they are at war. Things that are often seen as bad might start to blend in. This begs the essential question. Given that ordinary individuals may be pushed to do evil by external forces, is it possible for anybody to become wicked given the correct conditions? This is a scary prospect to consider. It casts doubt on the consoling notion that evil exists apart from the normative pattern of human conduct. On the contrary, it implies that evil may exist in every human being, depending on their viewpoint and the circumstances. The Holocaust and other historical instances of evil further confuse our comprehension. All of this has brought the potential for human brutality crashing down to the surface. They make us think about how people and governments might use ideology and belief systems to legitimize or even promote bad behavior. Another complicated facet, the function of moral judgment, emerges as our understanding of evil grows. What constitutes evil is subjective and subject to individual, societal, and historical biases. What is considered bad in one culture may be considered acceptable or even good in another. The concept of evil is now more of a cultural and ethical than a philosophical or psychological one, due to the fact that relativity casts doubt on the existence of a universal moral norm. Evil is not an easily defined or comprehended notion, as we have seen throughout our investigation. Free choice, ethics, social standards, and the essence of humans are all entangled in this. Investigating evil forces us to confront deep-seated concerns about our identity, values, and standards of conduct. The study of evil encompasses more than just trying to pin out the causes of terrible events and the motivations of evildoers. Exploring the intricacies of human behavior and society is at the heart of this pursuit. The search reflects the shadowy aspects of the human condition, which is both horrifying and exciting in equal measure. Even if we don't discover the solutions as we keep trying to solve these problems, we will learn more about the nuances of human morality and how our decisions shape who we are. Further exploration of evil necessitates taking into account the philosophical disputes that have molded our comprehension over the ages. Various philosophical and theological frameworks attempt to explain evil, but in doing so they bring up serious concerns about God's character and the reality of pain. What gives rise to evil when we believe in an all-powerful and kind God? Theodicy refers to this puzzle that forces us to find a way to explain evil in light of the idea of a just and omnipotent God. Some philosophers who have pondered this issue have posited that evil is an essential complement to virtue. They claim that good cannot be understood or appreciated in the absence of evil. From this vantage point, evil is not an outlier, but rather an integral part of the cosmos, facilitating the development of moral character and the practice of virtue. Some people think evil is inevitable because of human agency and existential crisis. One example is the work of French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre, who argued that the freedom to reject moral principles and chose paths that lead to horrible ends is an essential component of existential freedom. When we face the absurdity of being without a predetermined essence or purpose, we are solely responsible for our decisions, including the ones that lead to evil, says Sartre. This viewpoint moves the conversation away from outside forces and onto people's personal moral battles. As a result, we learn about the lives of those who, when pushed to their breaking points, committed atrocities that everyone finds unacceptable. Tragedy, ambition, and desperation are common themes in these works. Consider a soldier in the middle of a battle who must make split-second judgments that might determine his or her fate. Such situations might test our oversimplified ideas of evil due to the moral ambiguity that can muddy the waters between heroic and villainous actions. When we include in how group dynamics impact people's morals, things become more complicated. Research in psychology has shown that when people are part of a group, they are able to do things that they would never do on their own. Stanley Milgram's notorious 1960s studies show how susceptible people are to peer pressure and authoritative figures, leading them to do things that may be seen as wicked. In these tests, participants were ready to give electric shocks to a stranger that they thought were unpleasant. This takes us to the shadowy side of social influence, the ways in which religion, society, and government may mold our perceptions of evil to cover up or excuse destructive behavior. In order to achieve their political or military objectives, powerful people often resort to dehumanizing the adversary, manipulating ideologies, and spreading propaganda. By weaving them into society's fabric, manipulative practices not only make evil easier to execute, but they often go unnoticed until it's too late. Consequently, the story of evil is about more than simply bad decisions and lack of moral fiber. It's also about the ways in which communities either encourage or discourage the development of negative habits. To grasp the ambivalent character of evil, we must examine not just our own moral compass, but also the social systems that influence it. Analyzing evil requires plunging headfirst into the dark recesses of human nature. Uncomfortable realities about ourselves, our decisions, and the communities we live in are brought to light by it. The moral dilemmas we face today need this investigation, nevertheless. Knowing where evil comes from and what it is may help us combat it and create an environment where good things can thrive. This never-ending investigation is part of our larger effort to debunk evil and keep it from taking up residence in our souls and the places we call home. Our exploration of morality and evil encompasses not just individual decisions and social forces, but also cultural narratives and the arts. The arts, including literature, cinema, and visual art, have long been influential in how we understand and portray evil. These forms of expression allow us to delve into the complexities of evil on a deeper and more personal level than what can be conveyed in academic works on philosophy or psychology. An example would be the archetype of the villain seen in works of classic literature. Literary villains like Satan, Milton, and Iago Shakespeare represent more than just evildoers. They also represent intricate psychological profiles and philosophical conundrums. Evil, as shown via Iago's manipulative plots and Satan's disobedience of divine power, is characterized by cunning, defiance, and a profound feeling of betrayal. These people make us think about why people do bad things, test our limits of empathy, and face the scary prospect that we may all have a little Satan or Iago in us. Another fertile ground for investigating evil is the narrative potential of cinema. For example, horror films use both fantasy and deeply ingrained social worries to create representations of evil that delve into fundamental fears and cultural taboos. The portrayal of evil in these films often causes viewers to ponder not just the protagonist's motivations, but also the hidden anxieties and ethical crises inside their own society. What makes certain kinds of evil scarier than others? In what ways does this reflect the state of our collective mind? Evil shown in the visual arts has a long history of taking many forms, from the hideous and horrific to the alluring and enticing. Representations of evil in art function as both cultural allegories and therapeutic outlets for repressed emotions, such as terror or yearning. Through the representation of evil in art, artists provide a safe space for us to face and overcome our anxieties, where the consequences are more symbolic than actual. Additionally, religious tales often include the notion of evil as a moral warning. Stories of evil serve as a teaching tool in religious texts and traditions, illustrating virtue, atonement, and the repercussions of immorality. Reading these tales may help people see evil for what it really is: a personal problem with choices that have everlasting repercussions, rather than just an abstract term. We start to see patterns that mirror larger human worries as we make our way through these creative and cultural investigations of evil. The conflict between determinism and free will is a common thread. The struggle between agency and helplessness is a recurring issue in literature and philosophy, from ancient Greek plays' depictions of destiny against free will to contemporary debates on the role of genes in shaping behavior. We must ask, in light of this conflict, if we can be held really accountable for our acts, if they are influenced by other factors. What standard should we use to evaluate wicked people? If this is the case, we are adding threads to the intricate fabric of our moral thinking as we delve into these problems. The topic of what makes something or someone wicked has been around for a long time, and each piece of literature, artwork, or cinema adds a new thread to this tapestry. By analyzing these relics from our past, we may learn more about our culture's reaction to and processing of evil, as well as what it means to be human. We may observe that evil is culturally embedded in the tales we tell ourselves and about the world around us, as seen in these stories and pictures, rather than just a philosophical or psychological term. We navigate the limits of our moral landscapes and try to make sense of the inexplicable via these tales. For as long as people ask these issues, stories about evil will be important because they help us make sense of the shadow side of human nature, and maybe provide insight on how to be more morally clear. Our comprehension of evil is clearly changing as we keep analyzing it via narrative and cultural prisms. The conversation about evil in today's society has expanded into new spaces, shaped by media and technology, impacting our everyday encounters with these moral quandaries. Nowadays, with everyone connected everywhere, there are more perspectives on evil than ever before. A more diverse and often heated arena of moral argument emerges when individuals from many backgrounds express their opinions on what defines evil on social media, blogs, and forums. The expansion of people's access to other points of view brought about by the democratization of speech is both an opportunity and a threat. Our combined attempts to comprehend and combat evil are impeded by the ease with which radical ideologies and disinformation may propagate. Also, new kinds of bad conduct have emerged in the digital era, which calls into question long-held ideas about what it means to be wicked. There are also complicated ethical and legal concerns about responsibility and damage in the wake of cyberbullying, internet scams, and digital piracy. Despite the fact that these deeds might inflict substantial harm, they often don't conform to established standards of moral evaluation. Because of this chasm, we need to rethink what it means to be wicked, and how we decide to penalize or discourage bad conduct. Some worry that evil may find new ways to manifest as a result of technological progress. As an example, AI raises the prospect of computers with the ability to make judgments that might have negative consequences. What may be termed algorithmic evil machine judgments that result in detrimental consequences becomes an urgent issue as algorithms become more embedded in many domains, such as the criminal justice system and financial markets. Who is to blame if an AI does something that humans normally would consider evil? This raises philosophical concerns on the location of moral responsibility. Who is responsible? The coder, the end user, or the computer? There is more than just theory to these problems. Because we are putting more and more faith in technology to guide our decision-making, these issues have practical consequences. Making sure new technologies are built and used in a manner that aligns with our moral ideas and values is the real difficulty. Because of this, there has to be more of a conversation among techies, ethicists, lawmakers, and the general public, one that takes into account different perspectives on technology and evil. Looking forward, studying evil will probably still play a significant role in our quest to comprehend social dynamics and human behavior. The methods we employ to investigate this idea could evolve as new technology provide fresh perspectives on these problems, but the core concerns will always be there. How may an evil deed or person be defined? In the face of evil, how can we act in a manner that is consistent with our values? Finally, and most significantly, how can we stop the establishment of evil-promoting institutions, because it reflects our shadow sides and our worst fears? Evil is a notion that changes as our society and technology do. It is still an important component of our quest for knowledge about the universe and ourselves. If we keep talking about this in different ways, across different cultures, and on different platforms, we can learn more and be better prepared to deal with evil when it shows up. Maintaining this line of communication is critical because it allows us to keep our moral compass pointed toward both the here and now and the future. Literature is clearly an important source of cultural knowledge and moral investigation as our investigation of evil advances. The many facets of evil and its manifestations in human affairs are illuminated via the stories and characters found in literature, including novels, plays, and poetry. William Shakespeare's Macbeth stands as one of the most iconic characters in literature when discussing evil doings. The tragic decline of Macbeth from a heroic soldier to a despot exemplifies the corrupting influence of power and its enticing charm. His story is a warning about the perils of giving in to irrational wants. It delves deeply into the ways ambition may bring about one's demise. A critical component of evil that it frequently begins inside, nourished by personal shortcomings and external temptations, is shown by Macbeth's early resistance, followed by his later capitulation to deadly urges. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein explores similar themes of responsibility and creation, while painting a complex picture of evil as it manifests in the face of scientific aspirations and societal rejection. The monster that Victor Frankenstein creates, sometimes referred to as Frankenstein, is not born bad, but rather becomes hideous as a result of the brutality and seclusion he experiences as a result of society's treatment of him. Is evil something that is innate or something that may be created? This story makes the reader wonder. It is argued in Shelley's work that evil stems from both individual wrongdoing and society shortcomings. Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment delves more into the issue of social influences on evil as it follows the protagonist Raskolnikov, who murders someone while claiming to have a philosophical theory that states certain individuals have the right to commit crimes if it helps mankind. Dostoevsky delves deeply into the intricacies of moral thinking and the repercussions of moral violations as he painstakingly analyzes the psychological anguish and moral collapse that follows Raskolnikov's conduct. The tragic consequences of embracing a utilitarian morality that condones evil deeds are examined by Dostoevsky via Raskolnikov's journey. Anton Chigurh, the antagonist in Cormac McCarthy's No Country for Old Men, is a philosophically and haphazardly evil that reflects everyday fears and situations. He reflects contemporary existential doubts over the essence of destiny and justice by introducing a terrifying element of chance into the concept of moral judgment via his employment of a coin to decide the fate of his victims. Chigurh's cold indifference and deliberate murderous rampage raise disturbing concerns on free will and the nature of evil, by presenting intricate situations and deep psychological insights. These literary investigations deepen our comprehension of evil and compels readers to face difficult moral dilemmas. They serve as a sobering reminder that the narrative of evil is often more complex than a straightforward morality tale, including a labyrinth of wants, anxieties, social pressures, and ethical quandaries. Thinking about these tales and personalities makes it obvious that literature does more than simply mirror our views of evil. It molds them. Reading these stories is like taking part in a larger cultural conversation about morality and dealing with evil. Reading literature not only helps us comprehend evil better, but it also improves our capacity to sympathize, see the complexities of moral dilemmas, and evaluate our own principles and deeds with candor. Thus, literature is essential for teaching moral principles and reflecting on one's own ethics, in addition to reflecting cultural anxieties and standards. It sheds light on the shadowy parts of our nature, and in doing so, shows us how to deal with or comprehend the evil that surrounds us. For those who want to understand the big issues about life, this conversation has been going on for a long time and has been adjusted for each new age.